Next, I want to talk about CSV module, which is used to read specifically CSV files. Basically, you'll have to import the CSV module. Again, this is a library, so we'll have to import it. And we use methods like csv.reader, csv.writer, csv.dictReader, which is used to read the CSV records into a dictionary. And similarly, you can have csv.dictWriter, which can be used to write JSON or dictionary data into a CSV file. Then there's something called csv.register-dialect. It is used to register the default options like what should be the date format, what should be the code character, etc. And these are the various options that you can provide. Typically, you would provide delimiter and code character. Delimiter is how the fields are delimited, and code character is what type of code is used to define that it is a character or string variable. So let us go ahead and try it out with the same file. And this is the file that we'll be using for CSV, the Python orders file. And we'll have to open the file as we were opening earlier also, like with open followed by as input file. Then we'll have to create an object using the CSV function csv.reader, and here we'll have to pass the file name, which is actually the input file, and maybe the delimiter, which is comma, and code character, which is double quotes. So now it is done. Now if of course if I execute the reader variable, you will see that this is an object. So as you can see, CSV reader is an object. So we use this particular reader class to initialize the object with these arguments. We pass the file as the argument, we pass the delimiter as the argument. Now the question is, how do we read it? So we can loop through this reader object also, because it is an iterator object, meaning that we can loop through it. Just like list or set or dictionary or tuple, wherein we can use the for loop to iterate one element after the other. Similarly, we can do here also. So for record in reader, I can now print the record, and I will see that basically it will give me the output in a list. So each line is one list, and that's what CSV reader does. Once we have the records in list, now we know how to manipulate this using the various methods that are available in the list data type. So if I want to get, let's say, only order ID, and let's say if I want to get order date, I'll just print these two and it will give me the output like this. So as you can see, I can print the 0th element and the 4th element, or the 3rd element rather, in the list. So this is how CSV reader is. Similarly, we can use CSV writer also. Now let me show you the dictionary reader also. And here what do? We use csv.dictReader, and we'll pass the same arguments. And now all these records would be presented in a dictionary because I'm using the dictionary reader. Now if I execute this, as you can see, all the records are in dictionary data type with the key as the column names and values as the rows. So each record is basically one dictionary data type with the key and value pair. And you have all the columns and keys and all the rows as values. And if we want, we can use the dict writer also and CSV writer also. And I would recommend you that you practice both dictionary writer and CSV writer. The next module that I want to talk about in file handling is the JSON module. And you might be using the JSON module quite a lot, because typically what happens is that if you're using, let's say, Kafka. So Kafka supports both Avro and JSON, and you want to take the records from Kafka and then move it to, let's say, some database. And you do not want to use Spark, or even if you are using Spark, you want to get the record in JSON. And this JSON module can be used everywhere. So if you're writing Python, or if you're writing Spark in Python, which is PySpark, you can use the JSON module also to read records, let's say, from Kafka and then move it to Redshift or some other place. So JSON is a very important module as far as file handling is concerned, or rather as far as record handling is concerned. So what it happens, of course, we'll have to import the JSON library, and then we have these commands like json.dump. So what this dump command does, it serializes a particular dictionary to JSON format. So what is serialization? So if you have an object, in our case the object would be a variable of type dictionary, and we want to write it in a JSON file. Let's say I want to write it in Kafka in JSON format for that matter, we'll have to serialize it. So to do the serialization, we use json.dump method. Serialization is nothing but changing from one format to byte array or to binary format. Likewise, we have json.dumps, which is serialized to JSON formatted string. So the first one is hardcode JSON, but the second one is JSON formatted string. So the entire thing becomes a JSON formatted string. Similarly, we have json.load, which is the opposite of dump, and it is used to deserialize to JSON. So if you are reading records from a JSON file and you want to use the records in dictionary data type, we'll have to deserialize it. And we have load-s, which deserializes to JSON formatted string. So these are the important modules of JSON. Let's try it out. And I have a JSON file, python _orders _file.json, and you'll find all these files, all these codes in the dataset itself. And let me try it out. So the first thing is that we'll open the file. So we're reading it in read format, and let's say it is JSON input file. And now you know that if I'm using the open keyword, I'll have to initialize an object. So I have initialized JSON_records, which is using the method read lines. Now I'll be printing all the records one by one, and let's print records. It is similar to what I had used in CSV, and if I execute, so this is the output, and it seems like it is in an array. So let me do something. So while creating the file, all the records were created using in a single array. So let me print JSON records itself, which will be an object, right? And so now what I'll have to do is that I will have to use the for records also. Now if I print the records, it would become a single element of the array, or sorry, single list and multiple elements of the array. So I'll have to print or run a for loop again. So for I in records, if I print I now, it should show me the output. Now I hope you have understood why I'm printing this. I'll tell you, but before that let me execute this. Okay, so we got another error. This is basically not a list, so it is a string. Let me show you one by one. Okay, so I have initialized this JSON_records variable, and I'm using this read lines method. Now the problem here is that the JSON file that I have created, all the records are in array. So if you see, it starts with a square bracket and it ends with a square bracket also. Of course, I cannot see you the end square bracket because the file is pretty big. But if I print the JSON records, as you can see, this is a list of list. So this itself is an array of string, and there is only one element which starts here and ends here in the single quote. So it's an array of only one element with data type string, even though it looks like list. So first what I'll have to do is that I'll have to read this element. So I'm printing the type of I, then I'm printing the I itself. So now if you see, the type is actually string, it is not a list. So now this entire thing is a string, but if I, let's say, want to convert it, it will give me problem. So I'm converting, and this is a genuine way, or this is the only way to convert from one data type to another. I'm using type conversion, and as you can see, each letter is one element, and that's a problem. So that's why we cannot use the read lines. So I'm using this JSON.loadS command. Why it is loadS? Because I need to deserialize. It is already in JSON format, so I want to convert it to some data type which is basically matches with Python, and it is giving error because I have not imported the module. So let me import the JSON module. So the import is done and the error would go away. Now if I print the data type of JSON records, let's see what the output is. So it is giving error saying that the type error, the JSON object must be string. Of course it will give me error, because if you see the type of JSON records, that is actually a list with a single element. We have already seen that. So I cannot use this loadS here. So let me comment this. I'll have to use this for I command also. Now here I'll use the loadS command and I'll print the type of the variable I, and it says it is a class list. Now I can, I think, print I, and actually now it has become a list. So as I has become a list, I can definitely use this command for records in I, print records. So now I should be able to get all the records one by one. So as you can see, all the records have been extracted one by one using this variable I. Now what was the problem? The first problem was that the file itself is an array with a single element. So the entire record was in an array. So what we had to do, we had to read the records in JSON underscore records. And then we saw that the type of JSON records was list with a single element. What is that element? That element is the record. So the for loop that I'm running here, it is actually fetching only one record from JSON records. So instead of this, I could have done this one also. I equal to JSON records dot 0. Now why it would work? Because we have only one element, and this is a little simpler than the previous one because you do not have to run so many for statement. Now so I could do this, and then I'll have to definitely use the JSON loadS command because I'll have to deserialize it, and then if I run the for loop, I should get the same output that I was getting last time. So the problem was because the file had only a single record using JSON, and I had to do this extra stuff or this line to convert it to list and then get the element and then individual records. So this is how we can use the JSON module. And if we have a dictionary, we can write it using the JSON module also. And this is a very useful one because you'll come across the JSON module or the JSON library multiple times when you work in data engineering. So I would recommend you to do the practice, and please go ahead and read records from Python orders file.csv, convert each record to a dictionary data type, and then write it to a JSON file. Please go ahead and do that. And that's all about file handling in Python. So this concludes file handling in Python. Let's go to the next topic.